Thank you, Johanna. So now just to hand over to Arja Kreuzenberg. Arja is the project coordinator of the European Parents Association, and she's a member of the EuroFamNet Policy and Practice Group, and she's going to do our closing remarks for today's event. Thanks, Arja.
Thank you, and I hope you can all hear me well. Let me start my closing remarks also with a big thank you. A thank you to all of you who have come here today, to those who follow us online, to those who might look at these recordings afterwards, but especially to the organizers of this conference and all the researchers, the academia, and the practitioners that have been involved in this project. People who worked on the quality assurance protocol, the European guidelines, and other documents that have been presented today during the previous cost action and also during this project now. They can already be found on the network's website, partly, and as we have heard, the guidelines will be there in November, I think, if I understood correctly. So we have talked today a lot about how these things could be put into practice, what it needs, and how it can then be implemented. We, as a group, are convinced, and that was mentioned also several times, that all families need support at certain points. Not only vulnerable or marginalized groups, these ones specifically, but also all families. In a minute, I will get back to that in a little more in depth. We are also convinced that the changes need to happen at the policy level in the EU, but also in the member states, on the national and the local level, which means in a certain way top-down. But, and we have talked about this as well, the participatory aspect, the policies need to be co-created with the people who are really concerned, which adds the bottom-up aspect to the construction, the co-production of those policies. But let me get back to the question why all families need support and why it is maybe so difficult to push this forward. Let me give you some numbers. In all what we call in German the Sunday talks, you know those. They have that in all the countries. That's when politicians speak to their voters and they promise all sorts of things. Many of them mention families as the core, the nucleus of society, and they stress the importance of giving to families what they need, always underlying that they know what that is. That's the famous talking about and not with the people concerned. But when it comes to concrete actions, and especially resources, which was also mentioned several times today, things often look rather different. Why is that? So when we look at the numbers here, in 2023, there were approximately 200 million households in the EU, in the 27 countries. Only 23.8 included children. That's not even a quarter, which by contrast means that 3/4 did not include children. So for politicians looking for voters, I think you can deduct by yourself what that means. When we look at the composition of families in Europe, about 2/3 are couples, households with children. 12.4% are single-parent households, and 24% are what we would call other types of households. Yeah? This is also why, and that was mentioned as well, very often we go with very traditional models. Almost half of those households have one child. 38.2 have 2 children, and only a very slight minority, 13% approximately, have 3 or more children. So when we talk about support, who needs most support? When we look at who is working in a family, who is supporting the family with work, we see that there's a difference between households with children and households without children. All adults working full-time are a majority in the households without children. At least one adult working part-time and all the others full-time makes it different. And you can see that also one working and not working at all, or no adults working. But then when we come to no adults working, that's only the case in 7.1% of the households with children. So families that have children desperately try to work to maintain their families, more than households without children, obviously. Here you can see also the diversity that we have in these around Europe. And you understand that there's a huge variety from one country to the next. We talked extensively about children at risk of poverty or social exclusion, so I'm not going to go into this a lot, but you can also see here in the numbers that I give you that there's a huge variety between different countries. Romania with almost 40% and Slovenia 10%, though there's a difference of 30% points. That's enormous if we talk about targeted measures. The distribution by countries, so that you can see where your country is situated. So there are some specific target groups that will always need more support. That's what we talked about when we said universal and targeted than others. Taking the family diversity into account, yes, single parents, I've given you the numbers here, with teenage parents also very often overlooked as a group, migrant families, Roma and Sinti and so on. But for all the families, it starts with this, with a pregnancy, with a womb full of hope and promise. And as in most cases, we're no longer living in huge family compounds. It's necessary that the family support starts from this very early moment for all parents. Because nobody falls from heaven a born parent. Everybody needs to learn this. And as you are not supported maybe by your family any longer, it's very important that there is quality support for these people. Yeah? Holding a little one in your arms for the first time can be one of the most wonderful moments in a parent's life. But it can also be accompanied by a lot of worries and questions. Family support systems should ideally provide answers and help to dissipate the worries. All of us who have parents in this room and online certainly know that parenting can also be stressful, and juggling different tasks and roles can be overwhelming. Understanding and respect are necessary from the whole community. Employers, for instance, neighbors, friends, and family. Sometimes fulfilling these tasks, but also the high expectations, can be exhausting. And parent burnout is no rare phenomenon. Family support systems should be in place also to mitigate these challenges and avoid such breakdowns. Empowering parents to take on their role with joy, confidence, and the energy they need so that they in turn can empower their children to develop their full potential, to become happy and responsible adults, to lead a fulfilled life, and at some point have children of their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Arya, and thank you, Johanna. And I just wrote down when I was listening just the idea of people caring for and enjoying their children. And interestingly, I think that last point was just that basic reminder of the fundamental significance of being a parent and the fundamental role of families in society. So that was really, really helpful. So thank you. Lucia, do you want to maybe have the final word before we close the formal proceedings?
Yes, we'll be keeping. So I have a lot of things to comment that I'm not commenting because we will have now the opportunity, but I hope that you have also the resonance of all the interesting ideas that were shared. So I just want to finish with some thanks word to the Committee of Regions for the organization of the event and making this possible. The directorates to be here. It's really important for us to be hearing about these recommendations and having the opportunity also to listen from the very first time about this integrated child protection system recommendation that I think align very well with some of the aspects we have been commenting, and I hope that the work we have been developed is useful at the national level and as the European level, as we said. So also thank you to all the Eurofamnet colleges that have made this possible, and David referred earlier, not only at the European level but at the national level. There is a lot of people behind all this work. For sure, thank you to Make Mothers Matter and the European Parent Association for supporting the organization of this event. And just I want to finish thanking Ana Pizarro and Jane Grasmacher, who are the ones that are behind, always behind Eurofamnet, making a real important work. So thank you to everyone, and just maybe we can close with an applause to everyone.